The pharmacy bag crinkled in my trembling hand as I stood frozen in our hallway, my heart hammering against my ribs like a caged bird desperate to escape. Inside that small white bag was a plastic stick that had just changed everything. 2 pink lines that meant Jameson and I were going to be parents. I'd left work early, practically floating on air, imagining his face when I told him. We'd talked about children before, dreamed about them in those lazy Sunday morning conversations where the future felt golden and certain. I pictured surprising him with the test, maybe wrapped in a little box with a bow, watching his eyes light up with the same joy that had been bubbling inside me since I'd seen those lines appear. But as I approached our bedroom door, his voice drifted through the crack and something in his tone made me pause. He was on the phone, speaking in that low, intimate way that used to make my stomach flutter when he talked to me like that. "Babe, you know I'm only here for the money." The words hit me like ice water. My hand froze on the doorknob. "Once I've gotten what I need, I'll be back with you. She's too blind to see I don't love her. Just her bank account." The pharmacy bag slipped from my numb fingers, hitting the hardwood floor with a soft thud that sounded deafening in the sudden silence of my world collapsing. My knees buckled and I pressed my back against the wall, sliding down until I was crouched in the hallway like a broken thing. "She's too blind to see I don't love her." The words echoed in my head, each repetition driving the knife deeper. 3 years. 3 years of believing in us, of building a life together, of thinking I'd finally found someone who loved me for more than what I could provide. Tears blurred my vision, but I bit down hard on my lip, tasting copper, forcing myself to stay silent. Through the crack in the door, I could see Jameson pacing, his free hand gesturing animatedly as he continued his conversation with Tara, his ex-girlfriend who I'd been foolish enough to think was ancient history. "I know, baby. Just a few more months and I'll have enough to start fresh with you. She's been so generous lately." He laughed and the sound made my stomach turn. "Paid off my student loans, bought me that car, even put money down on that business venture. She thinks we're building a future together." My hand instinctively moved to my still flat stomach where our child, my child, was growing. The child he would never know about now. The child I would protect from this man who saw love as a transaction and trust as weakness. But as I sat there in the hallway, something shifted inside me. The crushing weight of betrayal began to crystallize into something harder, sharper. Something that cut both ways. Jameson thought I was blind. He thought I was just another naive woman, too trusting and too generous for my own good. He had no idea that my kindness had always been a choice, not a weakness. And now I was choosing something else entirely. I picked up the pharmacy bag with steady hands, my tears drying as a cold clarity settled over me. Jameson wanted to play games? Fine. But he was about to learn that he'd been playing with someone who could play them better. Before we continue, please write in the comment which country you are watching this video. We love knowing where our global family is tuning in from. And if this is your first time on this channel, please subscribe. Your support helps us bring even more epic revenge tales of life. Enjoy listening. 6 months earlier, I thought I was the luckiest woman alive. Jameson had swept into my life like a summer storm. Intense, passionate, and overwhelming in the best possible way. We met at a coffee shop near my office, where I'd been working late again, trying to manage the marketing firm my father had left me when he passed 2 years prior. I was exhausted, running on caffeine and determination, when this gorgeous man with warm brown eyes and an easy smile asked if he could share my table. "You look like you could use some company," he'd said, gesturing to the stack of papers and my laptop that had claimed every inch of the small round table. "And maybe someone to remind you to eat actual food instead of just surviving on coffee." I'd laughed, really laughed, for the first time in months. Jameson had this way of making everything feel lighter, easier. He was charming and attentive, asking about my work with genuine interest, listening as I explained the challenges of running a business I'd inherited rather than built myself. "Your father must have been an incredible man to create something so successful," he'd said, his hand covering mine across the table. "And he must have been even more incredible to raise a daughter strong enough to carry on his legacy." Those words had melted something inside me that I'd kept frozen since Dad's death. Jameson seemed to understand the weight I carried, the pressure of living up to a legacy while trying to forge my own path. He made me feel seen in a way I hadn't experienced since losing the one person who'd truly believed in me. Our relationship moved quickly after that. Within a month, he was staying over most nights. Within 3 months, he'd moved in completely, claiming his lease was up and he was between apartments anyway. I didn't mind. I loved having him there, loved the way he made my too-big house feel like a home instead of a mausoleum of memories. Jameson was an aspiring entrepreneur, full of big dreams and bigger plans. He had ideas for tech startups, investment opportunities, creative ventures that just needed the right backing to take off. His passion was infectious, and I found myself caught up in his vision of our future together. "We could build an empire, Colleen," he'd say, his eyes bright with possibility as we lay in bed on Sunday mornings. "Your business acumen, my innovation, we'd be unstoppable." When his student loan payments became overwhelming, I offered to help. When his car broke down and he couldn't afford repairs, I bought him a new one. When he pitched me his latest business idea, a boutique consulting firm that would revolutionize small business marketing, I didn't hesitate to invest. "You believe in me," he'd whispered against my hair after I'd written the check. "No one's ever believed in me the way you do." I thought I was investing in our future. I thought I was supporting the man I loved as he chased his dreams. I thought we were building something together. I was such a fool. But I wasn't the only one who believed in Jameson's act. My best friend Anna had been suspicious from the beginning, but even she had started to warm up to him after seeing how happy he made me. My sister Evelyn, who'd been fiercely protective since Dad's death, had grudgingly admitted that Jameson seemed to genuinely care about me. "He looks at you like you hung the moon," she'd said during one of our weekly dinners. "And God knows you deserve someone who sees how amazing you are." Even my business partners had been impressed with Jameson's ideas and his apparent dedication to building something meaningful. He'd charmed everyone in my life, weaving himself so seamlessly into my world that extracting him would have felt like tearing out pieces of myself. Which I suppose was exactly the point. Jameson was a master manipulator, and I'd been the perfect Jameson. Successful, generous, and still vulnerable from grief. He'd studied me like a textbook, learning exactly which buttons to push and which dreams to feed. He'd made himself indispensable while slowly, systematically draining me of everything that mattered. But as I sat in that hallway listening to him laugh about my blindness, I realized something he'd failed to account for in his calculations. I was my father's daughter. And my father hadn't built a successful business by being naive or trusting. He taught me to be kind, yes, but he'd also taught me to be smart. Jameson thought he was playing a long con, but he'd made one crucial mistake. He'd underestimated his Jameson. The next morning I woke up before Jameson, slipping out of bed with the pregnancy test hidden in my purse and my heart encased in ice. I made coffee and breakfast like I had every morning for the past year, playing the role of the loving, oblivious girlfriend while my mind raced with plans. "Morning, beautiful," Jameson mumbled, stumbling into the kitchen in his boxers and the expensive silk robe I'd bought him for his birthday. He wrapped his arms around me from behind, nuzzling my neck in a gesture that used to make me melt. Now it made my skin crawl. "Morning," I managed, forcing myself not to stiffen in his embrace. "Sleep well. Like a baby." He grabbed the coffee mug I'd prepared for him, exactly how he liked it, with 2 sugars and a splash of cream. "You're too good to me, you know that?" "You have no idea how good I've been to you," I thought, but I just smiled and kissed his cheek. "What are your plans for today?" "Meeting with that investor about the consulting firm," he said, settling at the kitchen island with his coffee. "The one I told you about. He's really interested in what we're building. What we were building." Even now, even knowing what I knew, he continued the charade. I wondered if he'd practiced these lies in the mirror, perfecting the earnest expression and the way his voice carried just the right note of excitement. "That's wonderful," I said, and meant it. Because every meeting, every phone call, every moment he spent building his fake future was another opportunity for me to build my real plan. After Jameson left for his meeting, which I now suspected was probably just another phone call with Tara, I called in sick to work and got to business. Real business. First, I called my lawyer, Connor Caden, who'd been handling my family's legal affairs since before I was born. Connor was discreet, thorough, and had seen enough messy breakups among his wealthy clients to know exactly what I needed without me having to spell it out. "Colleen," he said when his secretary put me through, "what can I do for you?" "I need to protect my assets," I said without preamble. "All of them. And I need to do it quietly." There was a pause. "Are you in some kind of trouble?" "Not yet. But I might be soon." Connor had known me since I was a child. He'd watched me grow up, had been there when Dad died, had helped me navigate the complex process of inheriting a business at 25. He knew I wasn't prone to dramatics or paranoia. "Come in this afternoon," he said. "Bring everything. Bank statements, business documents, property deeds, investment portfolios. Everything." Next I called Anna. "Colleen, aren't you supposed to be at work?" My best friend's voice was sharp with concern. Anna had an uncanny ability to read my moods even over the phone. "I need to see you. Can you meet me for lunch?" "Of course. But you sound weird. What's going on?" "I'll tell you everything when I see you. Just bring your laptop. And maybe that bottle of wine you've been saving. It's 11 in the morning. Trust me, we're going to need it." I spent the rest of the morning gathering documents and evidence. Bank statements showing the steady drain of my accounts. Emails about investments that had mysteriously failed to materialize. Text messages where Jameson had been increasingly pushy about accessing my business accounts to help streamline our finances. But most importantly, I set up a small recording device in our bedroom. If Jameson was going to continue his phone calls with Tara, I wanted every word documented. By the time I met Anna for lunch at our usual spot, a quiet bistro downtown where we could talk without being overheard, I had a folder full of evidence and a plan that was starting to take shape. Anna took one look at my face and ordered 2 glasses of wine before I'd even sat down. "Okay," she said, leaning across the table. "Spill. And don't you dare try to tell me everything's fine because you look like someone died." "Someone did," I said quietly. "Me. The version of me that trusted Jameson anyway." I told her everything. About the phone call, about the pregnancy test I was still carrying in my purse like a secret weapon, about the months of financial manipulation I'd been too blind to see. Anna's expression grew darker with every word, her hands clenching into fists on the table. "That bastard," she breathed when I finished. "That absolute piece of garbage. Colleen, we have to be smart," I interrupted. "Getting angry won't get me my money back or protect my business. But being strategic might." Anna stared at me for a long moment, then a slow smile spread across her face. "You have a plan." "I'm working on one. But I need your help." "Anything. You know that." I pulled out my laptop and opened a new document. "First, I need you to help me research Tara. Everything you can find, social media, employment history, financial records if you can access them. I want to know who she is and what she wants." Anna's fingers were already flying over her keyboard. As a freelance investigative journalist, she had access to databases and search tools that most people could only dream of. "Tara Elliott, right? Jameson's ex. That's her. Okay, let's see what we can find." Anna's eyes scanned her screen, her expression growing more interested by the minute. "Oh, this is interesting." "What?" "Tara's not exactly living the high life. She's been working retail for the past 2 years, moved back in with her parents after Jameson left her. But here's the really interesting part. She filed a police report against him about 6 months after they broke up." My blood chilled. "For what?" "Theft. Apparently he cleaned out their joint bank account and disappeared. The case was dropped when she couldn't prove he didn't have permission to access the money, but..." Anna looked up at me with sharp eyes. "Sound familiar?" It did. It sounded exactly like what he'd been doing to me, just more slowly and carefully. Jameson had learned from his mistakes with Tara, had refined his technique. But apparently he'd underestimated his ex-girlfriend's capacity for holding a grudge. "So Tara's not actually in love with him," I said slowly. "She's playing him." "Looks like it. The question is, what's her endgame?" I thought about the phone call I'd overheard, about the way Jameson had sounded so confident that Tara wanted him back. If she was playing him for revenge, then she was doing a damn good job of it. "I think," I said carefully, "that Tara and I might have more in common than either of us realized." Anna's grin was sharp as a blade. "Are you thinking what I think you're thinking?" "That depends. Are you thinking that the enemy of my enemy might be my friend?" "Oh, this is going to be good," Anna said, raising her wine glass. "To strategic alliances and well-deserved revenge." I clinked my glass against hers, feeling something cold and determined settle in my chest. Jameson thought he was playing 2 women against each other, but he was about to learn that sometimes, the players decide to change the game entirely. Finding Tara was easier than I'd expected. Anna's research had turned up her workplace, a boutique clothing store in the trendy part of downtown, and her schedule was posted on the store's social media page. She worked Tuesday through Saturday, usually closing shifts. I spent 2 days watching her from across the street, learning her patterns. Tara was beautiful in a sharp, angular way that was completely different from my softer features. Where I was curves and warm brown hair, she was all edges and platinum blonde. I could see why Jameson had been attracted to her, and why he thought he could manipulate her the same way he'd manipulated me. But there was something in the way she carried herself that told a different story. Tara moved like someone who'd learned to watch her back, who'd been hurt and had decided never to let it happen again. She reminded me of a cat who'd been kicked too many times, beautiful but ready to scratch anyone who got too close. On Thursday evening I finally made my move. The boutique was nearly empty when I walked in, just Tara and one other customer who was browsing the sale rack. I pretended to look at dresses while I waited for the other woman to leave, my heart hammering with nerves and adrenaline. "Can I help you find anything?" Tara asked when we were alone. Her voice was pleasant but professional with no hint of recognition. Why would there be? Jameson had probably never even shown her a picture of me. "Actually," I said, turning to face her, "I was hoping we could talk." "About Jameson." The change in her expression was instant and dramatic. Her professional smile vanished, replaced by something cold and calculating. "I'm sorry, do I know you?" "I'm Colleen, Jameson's girlfriend." I watched her face carefully, looking for any sign of surprise or guilt. Instead, I saw something that looked almost like relief. "Ah," she said quietly. "The atum." The casual cruelty of it should have hurt, but instead I felt a strange sense of kinship. Here was someone who saw Jameson exactly as clearly as I did now. "So you know," I said. "I know he's using you the same way he used me." Tara glanced toward the front of the store, then flipped the sign to closed, and locked the door. "The question is, what are you going to do about it?" I studied her face, looking for any sign of deception. "That depends. Are you really planning to take him back?" Tara laughed, and the sound was sharp as broken glass. "Take him back? Honey, I wouldn't take Jameson back if he was the last man on earth and I was dying of loneliness." She moved behind the counter, putting a barrier between us, but her posture was more defensive than aggressive. "But he doesn't know that. So you're playing him. The same way he played me. The same way he's playing you." Her eyes narrowed. "Though I have to say you're handling it better than I did. When I found out what he'd done, I went a little crazy. Screaming, crying, threatening to call the police. It just made him disappear faster. I thought about my own reaction in the hallway, the way I'd almost collapsed under the weight of betrayal. Trust me, I had my moment. But then I got angry. Good. Anger's useful. Heartbreak just makes you stupid." Tara leaned against the counter, studying me with new interest. "So what's your plan? Kick him out? Take him to court? Something like that?" I hesitated, then decided to take the leap. "Actually, I was hoping you might want to help me." The silence stretched between us, heavy with possibility and mutual suspicion. Tara's expression was unreadable, but I could practically see the wheels turning in her head. "Help you how?" she asked finally. "Jameson thinks he's playing both of us. He thinks you want him back, and he thinks I'm too naive to see what he's doing. What if we let him keep thinking that, right up until the moment we destroy him?" A slow smile spread across Tara's face, and for the first time, I understood why Jameson had fallen for her. When she smiled like that, predatory and brilliant, she was absolutely stunning. "You want to run a con on the con man," she said. "I want to give him exactly what he deserves. And I think you do too." Tara was quiet for a long moment, her fingers drumming against the counter. "What did he take from you?" "Money. About 200,000 so far. Plus he's been positioning himself to take over my business." I paused, then added, "And I'm pregnant." That got a reaction. Tara's eyes widened, and something that might have been sympathy flickered across her face. "Does he know?" "No. And he never will if I have anything to say about it." "Jesus." Tara ran a hand through her platinum hair. "He really is a piece of work, isn't he? At least when he screwed me over, I didn't have a baby to worry about. So you'll help me? What exactly are you proposing?" I took a deep breath. "Jameson thinks he's close to getting everything he wants from me. He's been pushing for access to my business accounts, talking about our future, and making bigger and bigger financial requests. I think he's planning to clean me out and disappear, probably to be with you. Except I'm not actually waiting for him." "Exactly. So what if we let him think his plan is working? What if we make him think he's about to get everything, my money, my business, and you back, and then we pull the rug out from under him in the most public, humiliating way possible? Tara's smile grew wider. I like the way you think. But what's in it for me? I mean, besides the satisfaction of watching him crash and burn. What do you want? I want him to feel as helpless and stupid as he made me feel. I want him to know that he underestimated both of us. And... She hesitated, then shrugged. I want him to pay back the money he stole from me. $15,000 might not sound like much to you, but it was everything I had. Done, I said without hesitation. 15,000 is nothing compared to what he's taken from me. Consider it a down payment on our partnership. Partnership. Tara tested the word, rolling it around on her tongue. I never thought I'd be partnering with Jameson's current girlfriend to destroy him. Ex-girlfriend, I corrected. I just haven't told him yet. Fair enough. Tara extended her hand across the counter. Partners. I shook it, feeling a strange sense of completion. Partners. But we need to be smart about this. Jameson can't suspect anything has changed. Oh, honey, Tara said, her smile turning wicked. I've been playing this game for months. Jameson thinks I'm desperately in love with him and just waiting for him to come back to me. He has no idea that every conversation we have is being recorded, or that I've been documenting every lie he tells. You've been recording him? Audio and text messages. I learned my lesson the first time, always get evidence. She pulled out her phone and scrolled through what looked like dozens of saved voicemails. Want to hear him tell me about his stupid trusting girlfriend, who's funding his new life with me? My stomach clenched, but I nodded. I needed to hear it all, needed to understand exactly how deep his betrayal went. Tara hit play and Jameson's voice filled the small boutique, warm and intimate and completely different from the way he talked to me. Baby, you should see how easy this is. She just handed me another $50,000 for the business expansion. I swear it's like taking candy from a baby. She's so desperate to believe in our future together that she'll give me anything I ask for. The recording continued. Jameson's voice growing more animated as he described his plans for our money, his excitement about leaving me behind, his crude jokes about my naivety. Each word was a knife twist, but I forced myself to listen to all of it. How many of these do you have? I asked when it ended. Dozens. He calls me at least twice a week to brag about his latest score. Tara's expression was grim. I've been saving them all, waiting for the right moment to use them. I think that moment is coming soon. What did you have in mind? I outlined my plan as it had been forming in my head over the past few days. A fake celebration dinner, supposedly to announce Jameson's successful business launch. All of our friends and family would be there, along with some of his potential business contacts. It would be the perfect stage for his public humiliation. We let him think he's won, I explained. Let him believe he's about to get everything he wants. Then, in front of everyone who matters to him, we reveal exactly what kind of man he really is. And then we destroy him. Financially, socially, professionally. We make sure everyone knows what he did to both of us, and we make sure he can never do it to anyone else. Tara was quiet for a long moment, staring out the boutique's front window at the darkening street. You know, she said finally, when I first started this whole revenge thing, I just wanted to hurt him the way he hurt me. But talking to you, I realize it's bigger than that. He's going to keep doing this to other women unless someone stops him. Exactly. We're not just getting revenge. We're protecting his future victims. Okay, Tara said, turning back to me with determination in her eyes. I'm in. But we need to be careful. Jameson's not stupid, just arrogant. If he suspects we're working together, he won't. As far as he knows, we've never met. You're still his lovesick ex and I'm still his naive girlfriend. We just need to keep playing our parts a little longer. How long? I thought about the timeline I'd been developing, the various pieces that needed to fall into place. 2 weeks. Maybe 3. Just long enough to set everything up and make sure we have all the evidence we need. And in the meantime? In the meantime, we give him exactly what he expects. You keep taking his calls and feeding his ego. I keep playing the supportive girlfriend and giving him access to more money. We make him feel invincible. Right up until the moment we destroy him. Right up until the moment we destroy him, I agreed. As I left the boutique that night, I felt something I hadn't experienced since hearing that phone call. Hope? Not the naive, trusting hope I'd carried for 3 years, but something sharper and more powerful. The hope that comes from taking control of your own story. The next 2 weeks were the most challenging acting job of my life. Every morning I woke up next to the man who had betrayed me in the most fundamental way possible, and I smiled. I made his coffee, kissed him goodbye, and told him I loved him. I listened to his lies about meetings and investors and business opportunities, and I nodded encouragingly. But underneath the performance I was building a case that would destroy him. My lawyer, Connor, had been busy. We'd quietly moved most of my assets into protected accounts that Jameson couldn't access. We'd documented every fraudulent transaction, every forged signature, every lie he'd told to gain access to my money. We'd built a legal fortress around my business and my personal finances. He's been very clever, Connor admitted during one of our clandestine meetings. Nothing he's done is technically illegal since you gave him access willingly. But we can make a strong case for fraud and financial abuse, especially with the recordings you and Tara have been collecting. The recordings were the key to everything. Between Tara's months of documented phone calls and the new evidence I was gathering with the device in our bedroom, we had hours of Jameson describing his plans, mocking my trust, and detailing exactly how he intended to disappear with my money. The pregnancy changes things, Connor continued. If he's been planning to abandon you while you're carrying his child, that adds another layer to the case. Especially if we can prove he knew about the pregnancy. He doesn't know, I said firmly. And I want to keep it that way. Colleen, if he finds out. He won't. This ends before he has a chance to find out. Meanwhile, Tara was playing her part perfectly. She'd increased the frequency of her calls with Jameson, feeding his ego and his fantasies about their future together. She'd even agreed to meet him for coffee a few times, carefully staged encounters where she played the role of the heartbroken ex who was slowly warming up to the idea of reconciliation. He's getting cocky, she reported during one of our secret meetings at a coffee shop across town. Yesterday he told me he's almost ready to make his move. I think he's planning to clean out your accounts soon. Good. Let him think he's in control. I stirred my latte watching the foam swirl. How are you holding up? I know this can't be easy, pretending to still have feelings for him. Tara's laugh was bitter. Honestly, it's therapeutic. Every lie I tell him, every time I make him think I'm falling for his bullshit again, it feels like I'm taking back a little piece of what he stole from me. And the dinner party? He's excited about it. Thinks it's going to be his big debut as a successful entrepreneur. He's already talking about the contacts he wants to make, the investors he wants to impress. Her smile was sharp. He has no idea he's walking into his own execution. The dinner party had been my idea, but Tara had helped refine it into something truly devastating. We'd planned it for a Saturday night at the private dining room of an upscale restaurant downtown. I'd invited everyone who mattered. My sister Evelyn, my best friend Anna, several of my business associates, and even some of Jameson's own contacts from his various networking events. Jameson thought it was a celebration of his business launch. In reality, it was going to be his professional and personal funeral. There's one more thing, Tara said, lowering her voice. I've been thinking about the timing. When do we reveal everything? I was thinking after the main course, before dessert. Give everyone time to settle in, maybe have a few drinks. Make sure Jameson is relaxed and confident. And then I stand up to make a toast. Something about celebrating the people we love and trust. And then I play the recordings. Tara's eyes gleamed. All of them. The greatest hits. Him talking about using me for money, him planning to leave me for you, him laughing about how naive I am. And then you make your entrance. We'd choreographed Tara's arrival carefully. She would show up just as the recordings finished, supposedly to surprise Jameson. But instead of the loving reunion he expected, she would deliver the final blow, revealing that she'd never wanted him back, that she'd been playing him for months, and that she'd been working with me to expose him. It's going to be brutal, Tara said, but she didn't sound sorry about it. He deserves brutal. He deserves to feel as humiliated and betrayed as he made both of us feel. And after? What happens to him after the dinner? I thought about the legal documents Connor had prepared, the financial protections we'd put in place, the evidence we'd compiled. After the dinner, he loses everything. His reputation, his access to my money, his future prospects. I'm also planning to make sure every woman in his social circle knows exactly what kind of man he is. A public registry of his crimes. Something like that. He'll never be able to do this to anyone else. As the date of the dinner party approached, Jameson's behavior became increasingly erratic. He was spending more money, making bigger plans, talking constantly about our bright future together. He'd even started hinting about marriage, which would have been romantic if I hadn't known he was planning to disappear with my money immediately afterward. "I've been thinking," he said one evening as we lay in bed, his arm around me in a gesture that used to feel protective but now felt possessive. "Maybe it's time we made things official. You and me." My blood ran cold, but I forced myself to snuggle closer to him. "Official how?" "Marriage. A real partnership. Combining our assets, our futures, everything." His hand stroked my hair and I had to fight not to pull away. "What do you think?" I said carefully, "that sounds wonderful. But maybe we should wait until after your business launch? I want to be able to focus completely on planning our wedding." "Of course. You're so thoughtful, always thinking about what's best for us." He kissed the top of my head. "I'm so lucky to have you, Colleen. I hope you know that." "You have no idea how lucky you've been," I thought. "But your luck is about to run out." The night before the dinner party I barely slept. I lay awake next to Jameson, listening to him breathe, thinking about everything that was about to change. In less than 24 hours, this chapter of my life would be over. The naive, trusting woman who had fallen for his lies would be gone, replaced by someone harder and wiser. I thought about the baby growing inside me, the child who would never know their father. It should have made me sad, but instead I felt relieved. My child would grow up knowing they were wanted and loved, not just seen as another source of income or another person to manipulate. "Tomorrow," I whispered into the darkness so quietly that Jameson couldn't possibly hear me. "Tomorrow everything changes." And as I finally drifted off to sleep, I dreamed of justice served cold and revenge that tasted sweeter than any victory I'd ever imagined. Saturday evening arrived with the kind of crisp autumn air that made everything feel sharp and clear. I spent the afternoon getting ready with the same care I might have taken for my own wedding, choosing a black dress that was elegant but severe, styling my hair in a way that made me look older and more authoritative. Jameson, meanwhile, was practically vibrating with excitement. He'd spent an hour getting dressed, trying on 3 different suits before settling on the navy one I'd bought him for his birthday. He kept checking his reflection, adjusting his tie, running his hands through his hair. "I can't believe this is really happening," he said as we drove to the restaurant. "All those months of hard work, all those late nights planning and strategizing. It's finally paying off." "You've worked so hard," I agreed, my hands steady on the steering wheel despite the adrenaline coursing through my veins. "You deserve this success." The restaurant was perfect for what I had planned. Intimate but not too small, with excellent acoustics and a private dining room that would contain the explosion I was about to detonate. I'd arrived early to set up the audio equipment, working with Anna to make sure everything would be clearly audible to every person in the room. "You sure you're ready for this?" Anna asked as we tested the speakers one final time. "Once you start those recordings, there's no going back." "I've never been more ready for anything in my life," I said, adjusting the small microphone clipped to my dress. He made his choices. Now he gets to live with the consequences. The guests began arriving at 7. My sister Evelyn came first, elegant in a burgundy dress that complemented her dark hair. She hugged me tightly, whispering in my ear, "You look beautiful, but there's something different about you tonight. Are you okay?" "I'm perfect," I said and meant it. For the first time in months I felt completely in control. Jameson's business contacts arrived next. A mix of potential investors and networking acquaintances who thought they were here to celebrate a promising new venture. They shook Jameson's hand enthusiastically, congratulating him on his success, completely unaware that they were about to witness his complete destruction. "Colleen, darling," Jameson called out as more guests filtered in. "Come meet Richard Elliott. He's the investor I was telling you about." I smiled and played the supportive girlfriend, making small talk about Jameson's brilliant business mind and our exciting future together. Every word felt like glass in my mouth, but I delivered them with perfect sincerity. By 7:30, everyone had arrived except Tara. She was waiting in her car outside, ready to make her entrance at exactly the right moment. I checked my phone and saw her text, "Ready when you are. Let's destroy this bastard." "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, standing and tapping my wine glass with a fork. "If everyone could take their seats, I'd love to get started with dinner." The meal proceeded exactly as planned. I'd chosen the menu carefully, dishes that would take time to eat, giving everyone a chance to relax and settle in. Jameson was in his element, charming the other guests with stories about his entrepreneurial journey, his vision for the future, his gratitude for having such a supportive partner. "I couldn't have done any of this without Colleen," he said during the main course, raising his wine glass in my direction. "She believed in me when no one else would. She invested in my dreams, supported my vision, and never once doubted that we could build something amazing together." The irony was so thick I could taste it. Around the table our guests smiled and nodded, clearly charmed by what they thought was a love story. If only they knew they were watching a masterclass in manipulation. "To Colleen," Jameson continued, his eyes meeting mine across the table. "The most generous, trusting, beautiful woman I've ever known. I'm the luckiest man alive." "To Colleen," the table echoed, raising their glasses. I smiled and accepted the toast, my heart hammering against my ribs. It was almost time. As the servers cleared the main course plates, I stood up again, my wine glass in hand. The room fell quiet, everyone expecting another toast or perhaps an announcement about our engagement. "Thank you all for being here tonight," I began, my voice steady and clear. "Jameson is right. This has been an incredible journey, and I'm so grateful to have all of you here to celebrate with us." Jameson beamed at me from across the table, completely oblivious to what was coming. "But before we move on to dessert," I continued, "I thought it might be nice to share some of the behind-the-scenes moments from Jameson's business development. The private conversations, the personal reflections, the real thoughts and feelings that went into building this venture." I nodded to Anna, who was standing near the audio equipment. She hit play and Jameson's voice filled the room, crystal clear and unmistakably his. "Baby, you should see how easy this is. She just handed me another $50,000 for the business expansion. I swear it's like taking candy from a baby." The change in the room was instantaneous. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Wine glasses froze halfway to lips. Every eye turned to Jameson, whose face had gone completely white. "She's so desperate to believe in our future together that she'll give me anything I ask for," the recording continued. "God, she's pathetic. But useful, you know. Very, very useful." "Colleen," Jameson started, his voice strangled. "What is this? Where did you—" "Shoo," I said gently, holding up a hand. "Let's listen to the whole thing. I think everyone should hear what you really think about our relationship." The recording played on, Jameson's voice growing more animated as he described his plans for my money, his excitement about leaving me behind, his crude jokes about my naivety. Around the table, faces shifted from confusion to shock to disgust. My sister's hand was pressed to her mouth, her eyes wide with horror. The business contacts were looking at each other uncertainly, clearly trying to process what they were hearing. "You know I'm only here for the money," Jameson's voice continued. "Once I've gotten what I need, I'll be back with you. She's too blind to see I don't love her, just her bank account." That was the line that had started it all, the words that had shattered my world 2 weeks ago. But now, hearing them played back in front of all these people, they didn't hurt anymore. They just sounded pathetic. "Turn it off," Jameson said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Please, Colleen, turn it off." "But we're just getting to the good part," I said, my voice still perfectly calm. "The part where you talk about how stupid I am, how easy I am to manipulate, how you can't wait to disappear with my money." The recording shifted to a different conversation, this one more recent. Jameson's voice was confident, almost giddy with excitement. "I'm so close, Tara. Maybe another week or 2 and I'll have everything I need. Then I can finally get out of this charade and come back to you where I belong." Several people around the table gasped. Richard Elliott, the investor Jameson had been so eager to impress, pushed back from the table with a look of pure revulsion. "This is sick," someone muttered. "How could you do this to her?" my sister demanded, her voice shaking with rage. Jameson looked around the table desperately, his carefully constructed facade crumbling in real time. "This isn't what it sounds like," he said, his voice cracking. "You don't understand the context." "Oh, I think we understand perfectly," I said. "But just to make sure everyone gets the full picture." I nodded to Anna again and she played the final recording. The one where Jameson described in detail how he planned to clean out my business accounts and disappear, leaving me with nothing. She'll never see it coming, his voice said with obvious satisfaction. By the time she realizes what happened, I'll be long gone. And the best part? She'll probably blame herself. She'll think she wasn't good enough, wasn't smart enough to keep me. She'll never figure out that this was always the plan. The silence that followed was deafening. Jameson sat frozen in his chair, his face a mask of panic and humiliation. Around the table, our guests stared at him with expressions ranging from disgust to pity to outright anger. Well, I said, setting down my wine glass. I think that gives everyone a pretty clear picture of Jameson's business model. But wait, there's more. Right on cue, the dining room door opened and Tara walked in. She looked stunning in a red dress that hugged her curves, her platinum hair styled in perfect waves. For just a moment, Jameson's face lit up with hope and relief. Tara, he breathed, starting to rise from his chair. Thank God you're here. This is all a misunderstanding. Tell them. Tell them what, Jameson? Tara's voice was ice cold as she walked slowly around the table toward him. Tell them how you've been calling me for months, begging me to take you back. Tell them how you've been promising to leave Colleen and run away with me. Yes, Jameson said desperately. Tell them that we're in love, that this is all just. Tell them that I've been recording every single one of those pathetic phone calls. Tara interrupted, pulling out her phone. Tell them that I've been documenting every lie you've told, every promise you've made, every time you've bragged about stealing from your girlfriend. The hope died in Jameson's eyes as he finally understood what was happening. You see, Jameson, Tara continued, her voice carrying clearly through the silent room, I never wanted you back. Not for a single second. You destroyed my life, stole my money, and left me with nothing. Did you really think I'd be stupid enough to let you do it again? But you said. Jameson's voice was barely a whisper. I said what you wanted to hear. Just like Colleen gave you what you wanted to take. The difference is, we were both playing a much longer game than you realized. I stood up, moving to stand beside Tara. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone in the room. The two women Jameson had tried to pit against each other, now united in his destruction. Ladies and gentlemen, I said, addressing the room, I'd like you to meet Tara Elliott, Jameson's ex-girlfriend, and the woman he's been planning to run away with using my money. Tara, would you like to tell everyone how that's working out for you? Tara smiled, and it was beautiful and terrible. I'd rather show them. She pulled up a text message on her phone and began reading aloud. Jameson, honey, I've been thinking about what you said about starting fresh together. I have to be honest, I'd rather set myself on fire than spend another minute with you. You're a pathetic, lying, manipulative piece of garbage, and the only reason I've been talking to you was to destroy you, but Colleen made it easier. Oh, and by the way, I'm dating someone else now. Someone who actually has a job and doesn't need to steal from women to survive. Have a terrible life. You've earned it. The silence stretched on for what felt like hours. Jameson looked around the table desperately, searching for any sign of sympathy or support. He found none. Even the business contacts who barely knew me were looking at him with undisguised contempt. This is insane, he finally said, his voice rising with panic. You're both insane. This is some kind of conspiracy. The only conspiracy here, I said calmly, is the one you've been running for the past year. But don't worry, Jameson. It's over now. I pulled out a folder from my purse and set it on the table in front of him. These are legal documents freezing all access to my accounts and assets. As of this morning, you no longer have any claim to my money, my business, or my property. You'll also find a restraining order in there, and a notice that all of your fraudulent activities have been reported to the appropriate authorities. Jameson's hands shook as he opened the folder, his face growing paler with each page he turned. And just so we're clear, I continued, copies of all these recordings, along with documentation of every fraudulent transaction, have been sent to every business contact in your phone, every social media connection, and every woman you've been messaging on dating apps. Your reputation is finished, Jameson. Your ability to con other women is finished. You're finished. You can't do this, he whispered. You can't destroy my life like this. I'm not destroying your life, I said, my voice still perfectly calm. I'm revealing it. Everything we've exposed tonight is true. Every word on those recordings came out of your mouth. Every fraudulent transaction was your choice. I'm not destroying you, Jameson. You destroyed yourself. Jameson looked around the table one more time, his eyes wild with desperation. Then without another word he stood up and ran. Actually ran, pushing past the servers and fleeing the restaurant like the coward he'd always been. The silence he left behind was profound. Then slowly my sister began to clap. Anna joined her, then Richard Elliot, then everyone else at the table. The applause grew louder and longer, until the entire room was giving me a standing ovation. That, said Richard Elliot, shaking his head in amazement, was the most satisfying thing I've ever witnessed. That man deserved everything he got and more. Are you okay? My sister asked, pulling me into a fierce hug. God, Colleen, I can't believe what he did to you. What he was planning to do. I'm more than okay, I said, and realized it was true. For the first time in months I felt completely free. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. As the evening wound down and the guests began to leave, each one stopped to congratulate me on my courage and to express their disgust at Jameson's behavior. The business contacts assured me that word of his actions would spread quickly through their networks, effectively blacklisting him from any legitimate opportunities. He'll never work in this city again, one of them promised. Hell, he'll be lucky if he can get a job anywhere after this. Finally, it was just me, Tara, and Anna left in the dining room. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the weight of what we'd accomplished settling over us. So, Tara said finally, how does it feel? Like justice, I said. Like closure. Like the end of a very dark chapter. And the beginning of a much better one, Anna added, raising her wine glass. To new beginnings and well-deserved revenge. To partnerships, Tara said, clinking her glass against Anna's. To moving forward, I said, completing the toast. As we left the restaurant that night, I felt lighter than I had in months. Jameson was gone, his lies exposed, his ability to hurt other women destroyed. My money was safe, my business was protected, and my future, our future, mine and my baby's, was entirely my own. The naive, trusting woman who had fallen for Jameson's lies was gone forever. In her place was someone stronger, wiser, and infinitely more dangerous to anyone who might try to take advantage of her kindness. Jameson had taught me a valuable lesson about trust and betrayal. But I'd taught him an even more valuable lesson about underestimating the women he tried to destroy. And I had a feeling it was a lesson he'd never forget. 6 months later, I stood in the nursery of my new house, painting the walls a soft yellow while my 6-month belly made the task more challenging than it used to be. The house was smaller than the one I'd shared with Jameson, but it was entirely mine, bought with my own money, decorated to my own taste, filled with nothing but positive energy and hope for the future. Anna knocked on the doorframe, carrying 2 cups of tea and wearing paint-splattered overalls. Break time, Mama. You've been at this for hours. I want to get it finished before she arrives, I said, setting down my brush and accepting the tea gratefully. We'd found out the baby was a girl just last week, and I'd been nesting with an intensity that surprised even me. She's not due for 3 months, Colleen. You have time. I know. I want everything to be perfect for her. Anna smiled, settling into the rocking chair I'd bought the week before. It will be. She's going to be so loved, so wanted. She's going to grow up knowing exactly how strong her mother is. Through the window, I could see Tara in the backyard, assembling a crib with the focused determination of someone who'd never put together furniture before but refused to admit defeat. She'd become an unexpected constant in my life over the past few months, our shared experience with Jameson creating a bond that had evolved into genuine friendship. How's she doing out there? Anna asked, following my gaze. Swearing at the instructions in 3 different languages, I said with a laugh. But she's making progress. Tara had surprised me in a lot of ways since that night at the restaurant. Beneath her sharp edges and defensive walls was someone fiercely loyal and surprisingly nurturing. When I'd mentioned needing help preparing for the baby, she'd volunteered immediately, claiming she needed a project to keep her busy. Any word from Jameson? Anna asked, though we both knew the answer. Nothing. And I hope it stays that way. Jameson had disappeared completely after the dinner party, leaving town within days of his public humiliation. The last anyone had heard, he was living with his parents in another state, working at a call center and keeping a very low profile. The recordings and evidence we'd shared had made him radioactive in professional circles, and several women had come forward with their own stories of his manipulation and financial abuse. Good riddance, Anna said firmly. He got exactly what he deserved. I touched my belly, feeling the baby kick in response to my movement. She'll never have to know him. She'll never have to wonder why her father didn't want her, because he'll never be part of her story. She's going to have something better than a father, Anna said. She's going to have a mother who fought for her before she was even born. A mother who chose her over everything else. The sound of power tools from the backyard stopped abruptly, followed by a triumphant shout from Tara. I did it. I actually did it. Anna and I exchanged amused glances and headed outside to inspect Tara's handiwork. The crib stood in the middle of the yard, slightly crooked but undeniably assembled. It's beautiful, I said and meant it. It's a little wonky, Tara admitted, but it's sturdy, just like its future occupant is going to be. I hugged her impulsively, this woman who had started as my enemy and become one of my closest allies. Thank you. For everything. I couldn't have done any of this without you. Are you kidding? You saved my life too. Before we took down Jameson, I was stuck in this cycle of anger and bitterness. Working with you, seeing how you turned your pain into power, it showed me there was another way forward. Speaking of moving forward, Anna said with a mischievous grin, how are things going with that guy from your yoga class? Tara blushed, which was something I'd never seen before. Punners. He's really nice. Patient. Honest. Everything Jameson wasn't. And he knows about everything that happened? I told him the whole story on our second date. Figured if he was going to run, better to find out early. Tara's smile was soft, vulnerable in a way that reminded me she was still healing too. He said anyone who could orchestrate that kind of takedown was someone he definitely wanted on his side. Smart man, I said. As the sun began to set, we moved the crib inside and spent the evening putting the finishing touches on the nursery. Tara hung the mobile I'd bought, little stars and moons that would dance in the light from the window. Anna arranged the books on the shelves, a collection of stories about strong women and brave adventures. She's going to love it here, Anna said, stepping back to admire our work. She's going to be safe here, I corrected. Loved, protected, and free to become whoever she wants to be. Later that night, after Anna and Tara had gone home, I sat in the rocking chair in the completed nursery, my hands resting on my belly. The baby was active tonight, as if she could sense the excitement and anticipation in the air. Hi, little one, I whispered. I know you can't understand me yet, but I wanted to tell you something important. You're going to be born into a world that isn't always kind to women, especially strong women. There will be people who try to take advantage of your kindness, who mistake your generosity for weakness. The baby kicked and I smiled. But here's what I want you to remember. Kindness is not weakness. Trust is not naivety. And when someone betrays that trust, it doesn't mean you should stop being kind. It means you should be smarter about who deserves your kindness. I thought about the woman I'd been 6 months ago, so desperate to believe in love that I'd ignored every red flag, every warning sign. That woman was gone, but she hadn't been replaced by someone bitter or closed off. Instead, I'd become someone who could love with an open heart while keeping her eyes wide open. Your father tried to destroy me, I continued, my voice steady and sure. He thought he could take everything that mattered to me and leave me broken. But he underestimated something crucial. He underestimated how much stronger love makes you than hate. How much more powerful truth is than lies. The nursery was quiet except for the soft ticking of the clock on the wall and the distant sound of traffic outside. But it felt full of possibility, full of the future we were building together. I want you to know that you were wanted from the moment I knew you existed. Not because of who your father was, but because of who you are. My daughter, my hope, my chance to do something right in this world. My phone buzzed with a text message and I glanced at it expecting to see something from Anna or Tara. Instead, it was from an unknown number. I know what you did. This isn't over. For just a moment my blood ran cold. Then I looked around the nursery, at the crib Tara had built, at the books Anna had arranged, at the walls I'd painted with my own hands, and I smiled. I screenshotted the message and forwarded it to Connor, my lawyer, with a note. Evidence for the restraining order file. Also, please make sure building security has his photo. Then I blocked the number and deleted the message. You know what, baby girl? I said, my hand moving in gentle circles on my belly. Let him try. Let him spend the rest of his life looking over his shoulder, wondering when the consequences of his actions will catch up with him again. We'll be here building something beautiful and strong and completely beyond his reach. The baby settled as if she understood, and I felt a deep sense of peace wash over me. Jameson could send all the threatening messages he wanted. He could try to intimidate me, try to make me afraid. But he'd already shown me the worst he could do, and I'd not only survived it, I'd turned it into my greatest victory. Besides, I added with a grin, if he's stupid enough to come back, he'll have to deal with Aunt Tara. And trust me, sweetheart, that's not a fight he wants to pick. I rocked in the chair until the baby fell asleep, then made my way to my own bedroom. The master suite that was entirely mine, in the house that was entirely mine, in the life that was entirely mine to build. As I got ready for bed, I caught sight of myself in the mirror. 6 months ago, I'd been a woman who defined herself through someone else's eyes, who measured her worth by how much she could give and how little she asked for in return. Now I saw someone different. Someone who had learned that the most radical act of self-love is refusing to accept less than you deserve. My phone rang and I saw Evelyn's name on the screen. "Hey sis," I answered. "I was just thinking about you," she said. "About how proud Dad would be if he could see you now." "You think so?" "I know so. He always said you had more strength than you realized. He'd love knowing that you figured out how to use it." "I had good teachers," I said, thinking about all the lessons my father had tried to impart about business, about people, about protecting what mattered most. "And now you get to be a teacher too. That little girl is going to learn from the best." After we hung up, I lay in bed thinking about legacy, not the kind that comes from money or property, but the kind that comes from the choices you make and the example you set. Jameson had tried to steal my financial legacy, but he'd inadvertently given me something much more valuable: the knowledge that I was strong enough to protect what mattered most. My daughter would grow up knowing that her mother had faced betrayal and chosen justice over revenge, strength over bitterness, hope over fear. She would learn that kindness and intelligence weren't mutually exclusive, that trust and wisdom could coexist. And if anyone ever tried to take advantage of her the way Jameson had tried to take advantage of me, she would know exactly what to do about it. As I drifted off to sleep, my last thought was a promise, to my daughter, to myself, to every woman who had ever been told she was too trusting, too generous, too naive to protect herself. We are not too anything. We are exactly enough. And when we stand together, when we refuse to let anyone diminish our light or steal our power, we are unstoppable. Jameson had learned that lesson the hard way. And if he was foolish enough to test it again, he would learn it even harder. But that was his choice to make. Mine was already made, to build a life so full of love and purpose and joy that there would be no room in it for anyone who didn't deserve to be there. The baby kicked one more time as if sealing the promise, and I smiled as I fell asleep in my own bed, in my own house, in my own perfectly imperfect, beautifully complicated, entirely authentic life.